Alright, so I played a game recently called Werewolves 3, Evolution's End. So this is a series of more than 3 games, but only 3 are done right now. The writer himself on Reddit pretty strongly implied that it's gonna be a total of 4, but who knows. My memories are unreliable at the best of times, but I don't see it in me to go through everything again, possibly multiple times, to fully contemplate how good every individual entry is. So in short, one I remember very fondly. It's about a group of exiles, forced to survive in what is essentially a prison city, isolated and treated like garbage but largely left alone. The player is a young werewolf learning and growing in this world. The end causes it all to come crashing down. Second game offers a very different situation. Largely it's set in a compound in the middle of nowhere. However, the perspectives shift multiple times. Now following a new group of some of the members of the old one. The player gets to be many different things: a pack member, a science assistant, a prisoner and a double agent. Trying to be very vague here to avoid spoilers. I remember not being a big fan of game 2. Not hating it, but it definitely left me a bit disappointed. However, there were a lot of interesting stories and characters appearing here, and while the game itself wasn't as good as the first, it made me excited to see more and where things would go. Now, I have just finished the third one, and there is a lot to say. Simply put, I recommend it. So, what is the third one about? I think in one word, a chase. The player is constantly on the run. And whenever settling anywhere, it all ends sooner or later. If the second game jumped around a bit, then the third one just didn't stay put for more than a few chapters. To be honest, it feels a bit like a fever dream. I guess I'll forgo the usual structure. So one thing which constantly came to mind in the return is the return of Haken and Lapu. What is especially interesting is that I am fairly sure both of them can die in the first game. So to have both of them be a fairly major part of this one makes me wonder how much of a difference does it really make. Which leads into another fact: these games have save imports. However, they are exclusively done through syncing with Choice of Games cloud saves. I don't use cloud saves. I never used cloud saves, I don't trust these things, and I often modify my files to get the stats I want. This was a major sticking point for me in the second game. Mainly because the quick start didn't actually allow me to select the things I did, nor did it end up in the same place. 3, however, offers a much longer and deeper start. It's really like a mini game of its own. It has a lot more choices, a lot more events, and even if you account for having another game, it felt so much longer and just better than the second one. Getting to prologue already was a journey in of itself. Also served as a nice reminder of what has happened. Man, it's difficult to talk about this because there's just so much, and I'm not sure how much I want to spoil. Again, I recommend all 3 games, but thus far 3 honestly feels the strongest. And I believe it's down to the fact that a lot more events are allowed to happen, events which leave behind lasting scars. I'm fairly sure that the second game pulled a lot of punches, and while it allowed some things to play out, a lot of it felt like a setup. Not many people were allowed to die, not many choices which are sure to shape what is to come. Instead there was a bigger focus on role-playing, like, oh, I'm a bloodthirsty killer who acts like a dick, or I just want to make peace and leave casualties to a minimum. And that's it. That's the amount of role-playing you usually get. Possibly why it felt the weakest. 3, meanwhile, clearly allows mutually exclusive paths, and I have chose to kill and save some very crucial people. In fact, I'm still debating whether it was the right choice. In my opinion, that's when the game truly stands out. When the story makes you question whenever it was the right choice, morally, or whenever it would have been more beneficial to the pack, instead of just thinking how to game the system to get what you want. I know so many games which are essentially let me level this stat, now I will choose the option which corresponds to this stat. Yay, role-playing. That sucks. It's boring. There's a lot more depth to give player with different choices, and I adore it here. There's very little of that skill shit. Also, yeah, now when I think about it, the choices actually did feel different. Like, if you focused on combat, generally you're allowed more lethal options, and if you focus on stealth, for example, then you can still be lethal, but you can generally take out people with no bloodshed. But then again, you don't know where exactly will that lead, and it can be actually different. Anyway, okay, I guess one thing which also stands out is the few characters out there. Of course there are plenty of named characters, but a lot of them don't have much going for them, or are essentially there to pad the cast. Bly comes to mind, one of a few young werewolves in the first game. After that, completely secondary and forgotten. She's still there, but she just doesn't really do anything. There are other examples, but it's unimportant to my point. What I did want to bring up are the metalheads. So they are prisoners from the second game. The name is very fitting as they are rough around the edges and aren't very welcoming, but aren't opposed to making amends if they do mess up. It was easy to dismiss them after the prison story wraps up. Similar to Bly actually, no longer an important part of the cast and quickly forgotten. Third game... God, I don't know what is wrong with me. I keep stumbling. In the third game, however, they all appear again, and metalheads truly shine. I doubt they are the best part of it, but I very much warmed up to them. They are actually tight-knit, and their leader is, well, dumb, but she's quite likable if given the chance. But everyone actually gets some time in the spotlight, and I loved that fact. It doesn't stop there. Lapu was another example, supposedly alive, supposedly exiled, but never seen again. For real though. So he comes back. Only he truly isn't in the best place after the events of the first game. From time to time he comes alone and seems to have a lot of character building off-screen, if I can use that term. However, at one point he becomes a very, very major part of the story and truly becomes irreplaceable. Which is what makes me think about the smaller, less important characters. Anna is another, Elders, Winter, Onyx. They all got more time in the sun, but they didn't get to have their glory yet. With another game on the horizon, I'm sitting here and wondering how much more could this man possibly have to tell about the most minor characters. And that's the part which very much stands out in this game for me. So, as far as the events go, I kind of want to play through again, but I'm almost afraid to ruin the illusion, because I felt like I was on a branching, personal path. I tried to build my own character, to actually roleplay. It felt right, unlike so many games which taught roleplay as a possibility and offer bare minimum customization and a linear story. But yeah, I feel like if I get a couple of runs in, figure out how railroaded it really is, it might put a huge damper on my enjoyment. Parliament of Knives felt a lot smaller, and as such the writer didn't need to try as hard to tie it all together. Here it would definitely be harder to obfuscate everything. Yeah, I struggle to put together all my thoughts on this. Instead, I almost wish to put them all away, for the time being, and wait for the fourth game, because I truly don't believe it's possible to end these games well. So I would play this epilogue and get disappointed, by which point it would be easy to go ahead and say that it was all bad and I saw it all coming and everything was linear and boring. But I'm still hoping it doesn't come to that. Thus far, Jeffrey Dean is definitely my favorite writer for choice of games. I've played quite a few of these and yeah, it doesn't get better than him. Some I openly loathe and feel they get completely unjustified amount of praise. But I won't mention it. I don't want to go down that night road. And instead I'll say what Werewolves 3 is pretty damn great.